back to my channel. So I am here with a flip through of my teacher bullet journal for the 2018-2019 school year. Unfortunately, trying to figure out sizing and exactly how I wanted to set up in this new journal, since last year I was using an A4 Master Slim Leuchtturm, I was not able to actually film this for you guys, but I will give you guys a full flip through of what I've got in here so far, and then of course during the school year I will update you guys as I go along and as I see how things work. So this is the Mint Princess notebook that I did a review for several months ago that I intentionally got with this Miss Scott on the front because I wanted to use it for my teacher bullet journal this year. So I definitely have a couple of changes in here as opposed to last year. So if you're curious, you can go back and watch my old flip through of my bullet journal from last year and compare it with this one, because this is, I think, going to be a kind of long video just going through this particular journal. So it is kind of this square size. So figuring out sizing and how I wanted to lay things out was a little tricky at first, but I think I've got it set up pretty much to my liking. So in the front cover here, let's see if I can make sure I get everything in frame. So in the front cover, I switched around a little bit what I had. I used to have that dashboard over on the left side here, but I decided that I wanted to have my schedule and my color code front and center. So I actually made a copy of the schedule that my school sent me and resized it smaller. And I have color coded each of my classes, and I actually color coded it before I resized the copy. So the colors on here are not the true colors. It's actually a copy of the colors. So I went ahead and I have this in here so that I can refer to it whenever I need to. I also have all of my classes color coded, and I have my full color code down here. So the color code for this year is a little bit crazy just because I have double the number of classes that I used to have. So what I thought I would do before I go any further is I'm going to show you my pen case for my teacher bullet journal and my teaching stuff, because it is a little bit ridiculous. I have to figure out how this is exactly going to work logistically, but we'll start here. So, oh my goodness, I have a couple of different ways that I like to color code. So this is what I take with me to school. Last year it was much more simplified because I only had 3 classes and each class only had 2. So each class had a color code, but each color code was only 2 pens, whereas this year I have 7 classes and 3 pens per color code, and I'm going to explain everything. So it is a little bit it's a little crazy looking right now. So I do like to always have whiteout, and I like this 5-in-1 ballpoint pen. So I've got 4 different ballpoint pen colors plus a pencil, which is really handy. The only thing I don't have is a separate eraser, which I'll have to figure that out. So I've got that. I have my teacher USB key, which I always keep with me in here. And then everything else, oh no, that's a lie. I also have a couple of black pens. So normally I use, last year I used these medium Flair pens to write in my teacher bullet journal for anything that didn't need to be color coded. But I was out shopping this year and I found these Ultrafine Flair pens, and they're a 0.5 point. And what I love is, since I already use the medium Flair pens for my color code, the colors match, which is fantastic because I use a lot of the Candy Pop colors, and so I was actually able to find a set of the Candy Pop pack in the Ultrafine and also in the regular medium, so all of my colors kind of go together. So these are just for normal writing, and now this is all for my color code. So the way it works is each class, I'm just going to pick out one, each class has 3 pens. So I have a fine, so this is a 0.5 Inkjoy gel pen, plus I have an Ultrafine and a medium Flair pen that go together. Now, I know this seems kind of crazy, but hear me out. So, in my grade book, I prefer to use the Papermate or the Inkjoy gel pen because it's a finer writing pen. It doesn't bleed through that much. It's just easier for me to use. So I use this for attendance, for writing down grades, for all that kind of stuff. I also, if I need to write notes to the kids on their papers, for example, a lot of times I'll use this because I can write a little bit smaller. In my teacher bullet journal last year, I used the medium Flair pen. Now, the problem that I have this year is that because I have a smaller notebook, I have less space. And so when I saw these, I was like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. I might want to use this. So I'm going to kind of play it by ear once the school year starts and see if I still want to use the medium or if I'm going to just stick to the 2 finer pens. I'm not exactly sure, but I also grade in these medium ones for things that doesn't really matter, like just checking off and that kind of stuff. I really like using the medium because, I don't know, it's just more visible. So each of my classes, I have already designated a color code with 3 different pens in the same color. So that is essentially, so let me pull out the ones that are not for that. Okay, so that is essentially all of these pens. These are for my 7 classes. And the way that I attempted to do it, and it didn't entirely work, is I did cool colors for high school and warm colors for middle school. So the only one that didn't work for was one of my high school classes. I really wanted to do a nice like goldenrod yellow. The only problem is the yellow Inkjoy gel pen is really not very legible. And so I couldn't really make that work, and I didn't want to use a green. I wanted to have actually all the same colors because otherwise my brain's going to get confused. So I have sort of pastel cool tones for middle school. I have pastel warm tones plus green for high school. I know that's kind of weird, but so, and one of the other things that I did is last year I used blue for my 7th graders, so blue for my Sankiem, which let me find all my blue. And so I have 2 classes of Sankiem this year, and so I kept blue all together. So obviously these are kind of mixed up, but these are for Sankiem, so they are going to be the same color as last year, just different shades. I had a class of quatrième last year as well, and they were purple, and so I'm keeping them purple this year. And then this year, I no longer have cesium. I instead have troisième, so I just basically moved cesium and made it my color for troisième. So I'm trying as much as possible to keep colors the same year to year because that's what my brain got used to last year. And then, of course, everything for high school is brand new, so those are new colors altogether. So that is for my classes. Let's move these guys out of the way. There. Then, so let's pull back in here. So that is this section of color code, and you'll see that I have labeled them on here, collège, lycée, so middle school and high school. And I'm trying to keep them as straight in my head as possible from the get-go. So the next thing I have is we actually get at the beginning of the school year a school calendar for the entire year that has all of the stuff that they already know about on the calendar. So last year, because I was only in middle school, I didn't have to worry about any of the stuff for high school. This year, however, I do have high school. So what I do at the beginning of the school, or in the summer actually, is I go through and I highlight all of the things that apply to me or my classes in the calendar. And this year, I decided to go through and actually color code them to hopefully help me out a little bit. So anything that is just general school-wide stuff is in this yellow. Anything that relates to middle school is in this like mint green. So you'll notice I kept kind of a cool color. And anything that has to do with high school is in this pink, so a warm color. And that way, as I'm looking through my calendar, I can kind of quickly see what applies to which of my students or what applies to just me, for example. This is also going to come into play a little bit later when I show you my monthlies, because this is going to be also how I put things on my monthly spreads. So this is the calendar color code. And the last color code I have is for week A and week B. So I just kind of arbitrarily picked 2 colors that I don't use at all for any other color code just to make it clear. And so I just was like, all right, A is going to be this green and B is going to be this violet. And this is because normally the week A, week B, well, last year the week A, week B didn't mean anything for me because I had my classes no matter what the week. However, this year I have one class where I will only see them on week B, so I need to make sure I don't confuse the weeks because I won't see them at all on week A or at that time. So that is my color code, everything that goes on here. Then I decided that the sticky note system was really helpful. I did use sticky notes, however, I didn't need them to be for specific categories. So I decided to use this page that just has the Mint Princess logo on here. I decided to use it as a doc for sticky notes. So I just have small, medium, and large sticky notes just in case I need them. Next up, I have my intro page. So this just has basically my name, and then it also has the 2018-2019 school year, but it also has my school and my school email address and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to cover that up really quick. So just a quick little intro page. On the back, I put the hours for the school library because sometimes I need to check it out, and it was one of those things that the hours were kind of annoying to find, so I didn't want to have to find them again, so I just wrote them in here. Next up, I have my year at a glance, and this is one of the few things that I straight up just printed out. I did not even mess around with hand doing it because I could not make the sizing work. So I actually found online a place where you can set up your own calendars, and if you do a year calendar, but if you start on a random month, it'll give you the entire year, which essentially just gives me the school year. So I have from August through July. The teachers go, so we as teachers go back the 31st of August, and then we still have things going on until July. So the kids are basically there September to June, but I like having this full calendar because this is where I have some like pre-planning and end of year stuff going on still. So straight up, I just printed this out and then I resized it to 75% because originally it was on a full A4 piece of paper, which wouldn't have fit in here. So resizing it to 75 gave me this like nice little size. Next, I had these 2 pages in like this violet, and I had a section in my bullet journal last year for passwords, and so I did the same thing here where I just washi taped these 2 pages together, and I write all of my passwords and stuff in pencil. 1, because if they ever change, I can just very easily change it, and 2, because it doesn't show through on the other side of the paper, so it's even more private. So I have my passwords in there. Then I have my schedule broken down by class. So each of my classes, I have them between 2 and 4 hours a week. So I went ahead and just wrote in what day and what time do I have each of my classes. So I have middle school on the front and I have high school on the back, just so that I have that. Hopefully this isn't going to change too much. I know that last year I had one class for one day that their class time changed between when I got my schedule in July and when I got my schedule in August. So hopefully it won't change too much, but I at least have this set up, and if it does, we have whiteout, it's fine. Next, I have all of my school holidays, so all the big dates that happen. And these are going to be things that I will put on my monthly calendars, but I like to have them at a glance right here because if I'm talking to somebody trying to plan a trip or what have you, it's nice to have them straight away just available right here. So that is all my intro front of bullet journal collections. Next up, I have what is one of my biggest sections in here, which is my monthly planning. Now, last year what I did, because I have that giant school calendar, I actually did an entire spread where each month I pulled out all of the dates that were important. The problem that I had was that I would sometimes skip or forget or miss dates that I didn't realize were important or that I thought I had written down but I hadn't. So what I decided to do this year is I'm abandoning that system and I'm just going to put all of those dates directly on my monthly. So the way that I've set my monthly up, and you'll notice this is where I put the bookmark. So each month I'll just move this because I figure I don't have to move this as frequently if I do it on the month level. Whereas if I did it on the weekly level, I'd be moving it much more frequently. It's kind of stiff to get in and out. Anyway, so what I decided to do, and I'm actually going to just flip to September so we don't have the bookmark in the way. So what I have is I have done the entire school calendar in monthlies, the same way that I did last year. So I have August through July. Now, kids start back in September. So in addition to having my actual monthly, I've also labeled week 1. So for example, weeks A and B through the entire school year. So we have 36 weeks in the school year and each one is an A or a B week. So I went ahead and used my color code and I just labeled all of those through the end of the school year so that I know exactly what week I'm on. I'm also planning to add in anything from the general calendar that I already know about. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to keep them in my color code just because my color code for high school and middle school is a highlighter, and so it's not going to be very easy. But if I have anything that's class specific, I can go ahead and do it in the color code. So for example, we have meetings at the end of each trimester, and so I can go ahead and put those meetings in and do them in the color code. Anything that's in general will go in here in black. So in order to kind of make everything fit, I did 4 days on the left side, 3 days on the right side. I do always include the weekend just because, I don't know, it throws my brain off a little bit less if I have everything. Plus we have a couple of things that do come up on Saturdays. For example, we have an open house for our school and that's always on a Saturday. So it's nice to have that in there just in case, but that means that the bulk of my information is going to be on this left page and then a little bit for Friday. I did also abandon the task box and evaluations and that kind of stuff. I do have a little section on the right side of each of my weeklies where I can do notes, but I didn't really need it last year, so I don't foresee myself needing it that much this year. But if I want to keep a tally of how many hours I have left, for example, once January hits, and if I want to see how many hours I have left in the school year, I do have enough room to do that over here. But otherwise, everything really just goes on the monthlies. So, like I said, I have all the way through July in here. I have not filled anything else in yet, but I do like to have the entire year at a glance, just so that I'm all set and I can add things in as they come up. I am going to also go in and add in holidays. So if we have any school holidays, any dates I already know about, that's all going to go in here. Once I get my class list, I will also put in the kids' birthdays, because if they have a birthday on the day that I see them in class, I like to write a little something on the board and we sing happy birthday. So I will also, this is one of those like in progress. I'll fill this in as I go. I'll fill in as much as I can in the summer, but then during the school year, I like to have it so that I can add to it as needed. So that is up through the end of the school year. Now, since I have 3 different colors of paper in here, I had another section that I wanted to add in here. So you'll notice that this year I'm using a tab system. So I have tabs in green for the craft section for the main section. So I have my monthly planning, and then the next big section I have is my curriculum. So I just arbitrarily picked green as the tab color because I don't know, I didn't have one that was in craft, but these are kind of my main tabs. So for the curriculum, in here, the 2 big things I have up front are my curriculum planning guide and my pacing guide. So I have my curriculum CALENDEX, which is the same as what I did last year. I have 1 column per month per class. So I have 4 classes in middle school, which is how I split this up. I have 4 classes in middle school, so I have 4 columns. And in these sections, I will label each of the units that I have, and I will color code them so that I can see roughly how long each unit takes me to get through. I've also gone ahead in and shaded out any of our school holidays. So we have 4 2-week holidays throughout the school year, so I went ahead and I just shaded those in. And we also have a couple of holidays near the end of the school year, so I just wrote in those days because I know I won't have class. So this is one that I set up at the beginning of the school year, but I fill in as I go. I have also done the exact same thing for high school. So in high school, I only have 3 classes, so I only have 3 columns per class, and so I was actually able to fit everything on this left page over here. But this basically hasn't changed from last year. I found that really useful. And like I've mentioned before, I don't know that I'll do this every single year, but at least for the first couple years of teaching, until I kind of get a hang on pacing, I wanted to have this like really visual representative of how I'm using the time in class and how much we're getting through. Then I have sections for each of my classes. So these still fall under this second section of the curriculum. These sections, I have one for each of my levels, so not classes, but levels, because I actually have 2 Sankyam classes, but I only have one section for that level. So what I've done is I approximated the color code that I use for my calendar, where I have college and lycée. So I had already used the green tabs for college, so I just picked another warm color. I picked blue, and then for lycée, I picked red. So each level has a tab, and I've got an intro page. So I have 6 levels right here. And what I'm going to do, I haven't actually gotten to this yet, but what I am planning on doing, and I did a quick little card just to kind of show you, is each page is going to be for a unit. So I'll have, for example, Unit 1, the title of the unit, the project that we're going to do for our end project, if we have any intermediate tests, so if we have any other like a spelling test or a vocabulary test or any other kind of test, I'll have that in there. The vocabulary that they need to learn in order to actually complete the unit, any grammar points we need to learn, any culture points that we're going to focus on. So for example, if we're talking about school, it's going to be something like things in the school bag, subjects. Grammar is going to be present simple, I go to school, I have class at, whatever. Culture is going to be, we're going to talk about school in the United States, for example. Documents are going to be, do we have any audio files we're going to listen to? Do we have any articles we're going to read? And then any other notes. So my goal is, I've already started doing this on a spreadsheet, but I wanted to have it in here as well, to have a paper reminder, so that if I ever come back and flip through and say, hey, what did I do in 2018, 2019 with my Sankyam? Let's see. And then I will have a little overview of each unit. So it's not going to be broken down by lesson. It's just going to be an overview of the unit because I'll break down my lessons a different way. So I've left in all of my main classes, I've left enough to do 8 units during the school year, and any of my what are labeled as Euro classes, I've left enough to do 6 units because we have far fewer hours in the Euro classes than we do in the regular ones, so I usually get through less stuff. So these are all blank right now. I just essentially set up the tabs. So that takes us through the end of the craft section. I do have a couple of extra pages left, and what I ended up doing is I went ahead and actually let me undo this for right now, is I'm going to keep a paper clip on my weekly. So the next section is weeklies. Last year, I ended up using a binder clip once I got further in the school year, but at least at the beginning of the year, I can just use a paper clip so that I can very easily flip to the current weekly. So I went ahead and I just, I essentially counted out so I'd have enough for 6 units, and then I just paper clipped the rest of them. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so I have, for this section, I have a yellow tab, and this one I did all the way at the bottom, so when I'm looking, I can just go to the bottom here and flip directly to my weekly, which if I paper clip it, I can't as easily. But I didn't want to change the tab every week because it won't get as sticky, which is why I decided to do a paper clip method, at least for the time being. So here, let me just take this off so you can very easily see what's going on. So since I mentioned we have 36 weeks, I am going through and doing the setup for all 36 weeks. So I went through yesterday and did all of the vertical lines, and I started today going through doing all of the horizontal lines, and I've gotten up to week 12. So I'll just show you the way that this kind of is going to work. So up in the top left, I have what week it is, so 1A. This one I originally had written in pen, and I decided after to do the color code. So all of the future weeks are just in the color code, so it's very easy to see. And then I have all 5 days of the week, so I basically just have a label for the day of the week. So I teach in the French school system, but my native language is English, and I teach English, so this is actually in a combination of French and English. So you'll see here that I have the days of the week, I have the first letter in French, but then I actually do the month in English. It's not really obvious in September, but I just kind of do it like that, and I sometimes switch back and forth. But this way I know what day of the week it is, I know the date, and I know the month, so it's very easy all at a glance. And then on this left side, I have the schedule. So in the beginning of the school year, I tend to put the start and end time. By the end of the school year, I usually just do the start time because I know it really well and I don't really have to think about it that much, but I like to kind of just remind myself. And the reason that I do my schedule this way is because I have kind of a random schedule. So for example, on Tuesdays, I only have 2 hours in the afternoon. On Wednesdays, I only have like 3 hours in the morning. And so if I had somebody from school who said, hey, Caitlin, can you have a meeting at this time? If I have this entire setup like this, I can very easily look and say like, oh, I don't have class at that time. Yes, absolutely. And so for example, when things come up like mock exams or actual exams, and I have administration who's asking me if I can actually proctor, for example, I can say like, yes, I have time here and I have a spot on here to actually put that into my schedule. So it is a little bit overkill. I don't need to have all of this. There are ways that you can do it where you just have the information you need for your class. However, I like to see the full day's schedule so that I know exactly where my free periods are and where I have time to go and do other things or where I have time to schedule meetings and stuff. So this is one of the main places where I also use my color code. So any of my classes, at the beginning of the week, I go through and I say, okay, I know I have, for example, my 5e, I have them in the afternoon on Monday, the morning on Wednesday, and the afternoon on Thursday. For example, I'm making that up. I don't actually know my schedule yet. So what I'll do is I'll label in, for example, my class in the color code, and then I'll also on the actual hour, and then I'll label what we're doing. So for example, if I had one of my classes at 2:55, I would write in, for example, 5e, and then, okay, it's the beginning of the school year, so we're doing our introductory unit, so I would just write like introduction, for example, or later I would write, 5e, test. And so I kind of know an overview of what we're doing because I have other lesson plans that I refer to, but this gives me an idea for my week, and it also helps me plan out during the week what I'm doing. I can write on here also if we're going to the computer lab, if for some reason class gets canceled or moved, I can very easily see it on here. So that is how I use my weekly. I also have a section over here for notes. I had a much larger section last year. I basically had this right page, but I needed to have all 5 days of the week because I am at school all 5 days. So I'm hoping that this will give me enough space, but I have also kind of anticipated this not being enough space, and I'll show you guys what I'll do for that in a second. So basically, this entire section of like cream paper is weeklies, and it goes all the way up through here. So if you look at the end, I basically have like 6 or 7 pages left at the end that I can use for something. I don't actually have anything for it yet though. Now, the last section. I decided to have a dedicated note section because, for example, if on my weeklies I need more room, I can come to the back and I can use that as a note section. When we have meetings, I can take notes directly in here. If I have planning meeting, like literally any kind of meeting, last year I would keep just like a random little notebook in my teacher bag and I would use that to take notes. Whereas since I have the space in here, I figured I might as well just use that to take notes directly in here. So I haven't actually put a tab on this page just because it's not as important of a section. For example, the monthlies and the weeklies I use all the time, whereas this is just I'm going to flip to the back of the book kind of thing. So I don't have a tab on here yet. I've only labeled this front page, but I haven't done anything else with it yet because it's just kind of an open section for me to do whatever I need to do in here. And yeah, that is essentially my setup. So in terms of what I actually used to do my setup, I used a couple of different pens. So for my monthlies, I used a Pentel sign pen to do the lettering. I used my 08 micron to do all of my outline. I believe I used an 05 to do the days of the week, and I think it was like the 01 or the 005 to do the numbers. So basically I used microns for most all of this because I like that they don't smudge. I also have both of my big rulers. So I have my really big long ruler and then I have my little ruler because on this side I could actually very easily use this ruler, but I needed the longer one to do the left page. So that was for this. For the curriculum planning guide, I used essentially the same. I used the 05, I think, to do the outline for everything, and I used the 08 to write the months. And then for my weeklies, I'm using the 08, which I'm actually getting to the point now where I've done so much that my 08 is running out of ink, so I'll probably end up having to switch to the 05. But I am using a ruler for all of these just because I'm working with much less space, and so I want to make sure that I have as much space as possible, and having squiggly lines would mean that some boxes would be smaller than the others. So it is time consuming, definitely, but my goal is between now and ideally now and when I actually leave to go visit family in the US, so I have about a week left, I would like to finish doing all of my monthlies. The curriculum planning section, so all of these sections, I'm not as concerned about because I have a digital copy, so I can kind of fill them in as I go. But I want to at least have all the weeks set up because what I realized last year is I think I set up 10 weeks at the beginning of the school year, and I was like, oh, I have a ton, like I don't have to worry about this for a while. But time goes by pretty fast, and so I think I got up to like week 8 or 9. I was like, oh man, I have like 1 or 2 left. I need to set up more. And so I was constantly in a rush to set up more weeklies. And there are some times where I wanted to plan like a week or so in advance, but if I didn't already have it set up, it was really hard for me to do that. So for this time, especially since I also need to know the week A, week B, I want to get all of that set up now so that I just don't have to worry about it. So it is definitely kind of time consuming, but I'm hoping that this will save me time in the long run. It's nice now because I can listen to an audiobook or I can listen to music while I'm doing it, and so it goes by pretty quick. It's kind of therapeutic actually, but it is definitely more time consuming to do your bullet journal this way. However, I had a couple of aspects that I really wanted to be a certain way that it just doesn't exist that way if you buy a pre laid out planner. So I'm hoping that this will work fairly well. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I will definitely come back periodically like I did last school year and show you guys how things are going. I haven't yet set up my grade books or any of that yet. I just wanted to come on here and do a flip through of the main planner so that you guys could see sort of where I'm starting from, but I will come back with updates and I'll show you how things go because For example, the binder system that I used last year, I'm not sure how that's going to work because I now have 7 classes, so that would get kind of bulky. So I have to kind of figure that out, but yeah, it's getting there. I'm starting to think about this. I'm starting to actually get things on paper and get things set up, so it feels good. So if you guys have any comments, questions, if you have anything that you do in your own personal teacher bullet journal that you think would be an interesting thing for me to try, let me know down in the comment section, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!